Have you ever felt like a lost child trapped inside an adult body, still waiting for someone to come save you? He's 7 years old, sitting on the bottom step of a staircase that feels too big, too cold. The house is silent, but it's the kind of silence that screams. His father's voice still echoes in the walls. His mother's door is closed. Again. He doesn't cry, he learned not to. Crying makes it worse. Instead, he sits very still. He counts his breaths. 1, 2, 3. He makes himself small, so small that maybe, just maybe, he'll disappear. Not physically, but psychologically. He's learning a brutal lesson that will follow him for decades. Your feelings are too much. Your heart is too loud. You need to be less, so he becomes less. This is what happens when a child born with a nervous system that feels everything, more deeply, more intensely, more painfully, grows up in a world that has no room for their sensitivity. This is the story of the highly sensitive child, and maybe you're wondering, how do I know if I was one of them? How do I stop living in survival mode? How do I finally feel safe in my own skin? That's exactly what we're about to discover. There's a term for this, a scientific explanation for why some people feel the world at a volume most others will never understand. It's called being a highly sensitive person, or HSP. And before you roll your eyes and think, oh great, another label, this isn't just pop psychology, this is neuroscience. A highly sensitive person has a central nervous system with an increased sensitivity to process stimuli. Physical, emotional, and social. It's genetic, it's biological, it's not a flaw, it's how you're wired. About 15 to 20% of the population is born this way. You didn't choose it, your parents didn't cause it. You came into this world with a nervous system calibrated to notice more, feel more, and process more. Dr. Elaine Aron, the psychologist who pioneered this research, created a framework to understand HSP. She calls it DOES. D, depth of processing. You don't just skim the surface, you analyze, you reflect, you connect dots that others miss. Your brain doesn't do shallow. O, overstimulation. Loud environments, bright lights, chaotic energy, they drain you faster than most people. Your nervous system reaches capacity quicker because it's processing exponentially more information. E, emotional responsiveness. You feel emotions deeply. Joy feels euphoric. Sadness feels crushing. You don't just have feelings, you experience them at full volume. S, sensitivity to subtleties. You notice the shift in someone's tone, the flicker of discomfort in their eyes, the tension in a room before anyone says a word. You pick up what others miss. This isn't a superpower. This isn't a disorder. It's a trait, like being left-handed or having blue eyes. You're perceptive, empathetic, self-aware, intuitive. You have a capacity for love and emotional connection that runs deeper than most people will ever access. But here's the catch. If you grew up in an environment that couldn't hold your sensitivity, if you were told you were too much, too sensitive, too dramatic, then this gift became a curse. And that's where the damage begins. So let me say this clearly. You are not broken. You are not defective. You are not too much. You're just wired differently. And in a world that celebrates toughness, stoicism, and emotional detachment, being wired for depth and feeling can make you feel like an alien. But you're not an alien. You're just rare. And rarity in the wrong environment feels like loneliness. Let me show you what I mean. Here are 8 traits that HSPs share, and I want you to notice, really notice, how many of these feel like someone just held up a mirror to your soul. Trait 1. You notice details that everyone else misses. You're the person who immediately spots when someone gets a haircut, when they seem off, when the energy in the room shifts. You see the micro expressions, the subtle changes, the things hiding in plain sight. While others glide through life on autopilot, you're absorbing everything, and sometimes it's exhausting to see so much. Trait 2. You take forever to make decisions. Choosing a restaurant feels like choosing a career, because your brain doesn't just weigh the options, it weighs the consequences, the possibilities, the regrets. You compare this moment to every similar moment you've ever experienced. You run simulations. Impulsivity terrifies you. Spontaneity feels reckless, because what if you regret it? What if you choose wrong? Trait 3. You get overwhelmed easily. Too many tasks in too little time. Crowds, noise, bright lights, scratchy fabrics. The world becomes too much and you need to escape. You avoid concerts, nightclubs, chaotic parties, not because you're antisocial, but because your nervous system can't handle the onslaught. Trait 4. You need more downtime than most people. After being around people, even people you love, you need to disappear, to recharge, to decompress. You're not being rude, you're not withdrawing, you're just resetting, because social interaction for you is like running a marathon, and you need recovery time. Trait 5. You're more self-aware than almost anyone you know. You know your emotions, your triggers, your patterns, your wounds. You've spent years inside your own head analyzing every thought, every reaction, every defense mechanism. Your inner world is rich, complex, and often overwhelming, but it's also where your power lives. Trait 6. You experience emotions at a depth that others don't. You wear your heart on your sleeve because you can't hide it. When you're happy, you're radiant. When you're sad, you're devastated. You don't do fine. Fine doesn't exist for you. You make decisions with your heart. You react with your heart. And sometimes you wish you could just turn the volume down. Trait 7. You are your own harshest critic. Perfectionism isn't a choice, it's a survival mechanism. You doubt yourself constantly. You replay your mistakes on an endless loop. And when someone watches you work, your anxiety skyrockets because you're already convinced you're failing. Every embarrassing moment lives in your memory like it happened yesterday. Forgiveness? You give it freely to others. To yourself, almost never. Trait 8. You avoid violent media. Horror movies, gory scenes, true crime. They don't entertain you, they haunt you. Because your brain doesn't differentiate between fiction and reality the way others do. You feel the suffering, you carry it. And no, you're not weak, you're just wired to absorb more. So here's my question. How many of those did you nod along to? 5, 6, all 8? If you recognize yourself in most of them, then welcome. You're part of the 15 to 20%. You're an HSP. And here's what nobody tells you. You are not alone. You've probably spent your whole life feeling like you're the only one who feels this intensely. The only one who cries at commercials. The only one who needs 3 days to recover from a weekend trip. The only one who replays conversations for hours, analyzing every word. But you're not. There are millions of us, walking through the same world, feeling the same overwhelm, carrying the same shame. Because that's the other thing nobody tells you. Society doesn't celebrate sensitivity, it punishes it. We're told to toughen up, to not take things so personally, to get over it. We're called dramatic, fragile, too much. And so we learn to hide, we learn to perform, we learn to become smaller, quieter, less. We learn that our feelings are a burden, and that's where the real damage happens. Because when a sensitive child grows up believing their sensitivity is a flaw, they don't just suppress their emotions, they suppress their entire self. So what happens when a child born with this trait, this deep, overwhelming sensitivity, grows up in a family that isn't safe? What happens when the very people who are supposed to protect you become the source of your pain? What happens when a nervous system wired to feel everything is raised in chaos, neglect, or emotional violence? I'll tell you what happens. The sensitivity doesn't disappear. It becomes a weapon against yourself. You feel everything 10 times louder than anyone else in your family. When your parents fight, you don't just hear the words, you feel the rage vibrating in your chest. You absorb the tension. You carry it in your body for days. While your siblings seem fine the next morning, you're still shaking. When your mother is sad, you don't just notice, you become sad. Her grief seeps into you. You take it on like it's your responsibility. Like if you can just fix her, maybe the house will stop feeling so heavy. So you become the emotional sponge. The family therapist at age 8. The one who walks on eggshells, reading the room, managing everyone else's feelings because no one is managing yours. You learn to disappear, not physically, but emotionally. You learn that your tears make things worse, that your needs are too much, that your sensitivity is a burden everyone has to tolerate. So you stop crying, you stop asking, you stop needing. You become the easy child, the good child, the one who never complains. And inside you're screaming. Because while everyone else could ignore the chaos, compartmentalize the pain, move on by morning, you couldn't. You absorbed every fight, every slammed door, every cold silence. Your siblings could tune it out. Your parents could pretend it didn't happen. But you carried it, all of it. And no one ever asked if you were okay. Because you looked fine. But fine is a mask too. So you grew up believing that something was wrong with you. That you were weak. That you were broken. You grew up thinking that if you could just be tougher, stronger, less sensitive, then maybe you'd be lovable. And that belief, that's the wound that follows you into adulthood. Let me be very clear about something. You didn't deserve that. You didn't deserve to grow up in an environment that couldn't hold your sensitivity. You didn't deserve to be told your feelings were too much. You didn't deserve to carry everyone else's emotions while no one carried yours. You were just a child who felt deeply in a family that couldn't feel at all, and there was nothing wrong with you. The problem wasn't your sensitivity. The problem was that you were an orchid trying to survive in a desert. You needed gentle care and you got neglect. You needed validation and you got shame. That's not your fault. That's theirs. Here's what actually happened from a scientific perspective. Your nervous system went into survival mode. When you're a highly sensitive child in an unsafe environment, your brain makes a choice: adapt or collapse. And you adapted. You became hypervigilant, always scanning for danger, always trying to predict the next outburst, the next rejection, the next moment you'd have to shrink yourself to stay safe. You developed what psychologists call hypervigilance, a state of constant alertness. Your nervous system learned that safety requires perfect awareness. So you never relax, you never let your guard down. Even now, decades later, you walk into a room and immediately assess: who's upset? What's the energy? What do I need to do to keep the peace? That's not sensitivity, that's trauma. And here's the part that breaks my heart. You were told you were too sensitive, but your reactions weren't excessive. They were appropriate. A sensitive child in a toxic environment should feel scared, should feel overwhelmed, should cry. That's not weakness, that's your nervous system doing exactly what it's supposed to do, alerting you to danger. The problem was never your sensitivity. The problem was that the people around you couldn't handle their own emotions, so they made you responsible for managing them. And when you couldn't fix them, because you were a child and it was never your job, they blamed you for feeling too much, so you learned to feel nothing at all. But here's what nobody told you. Here's the truth that could change everything. Your sensitivity was never the problem. Your sensitivity was never a flaw. Your sensitivity is, and has always been, a gift. The problem wasn't that you felt too much. The problem was that you were taught to see your depth as a defect, and it's time to rewrite that story. What if I told you that everything you've been taught to hate about yourself is actually the source of your greatest strength? What if your sensitivity, the thing you've spent your entire life trying to suppress, hide, and apologize for, is the very thing that makes you extraordinary? What if the world doesn't need you to be tougher, harder, less feeling? What if the world desperately needs you to be exactly who you are? I know that sounds impossible right now, especially if you've spent decades believing you're too much. But stay with me, because once you see your sensitivity as a gift instead of a curse, everything changes. Let me show you the 4 gifts you were born with. The 4 superpowers hiding beneath the shame. You feel emotions at a depth most people will never access. And yes, that means you cry easily. You get hurt easily. You feel heartbreak like a physical wound, but it also means you love deeply. You empathize powerfully. You connect authentically. You're the friend who knows someone is struggling before they say a word. You're the person who makes others feel truly seen because you see what they're hiding. You have a capacity for compassion that's rare. You can hold space for pain without flinching. You can sit with someone in their darkness without trying to fix them. The world needs people like you, people who haven't numbed themselves, people who can still feel, because empathy is how we stay human. And you're overflowing with it. You notice things others miss, the smell of gas before anyone else does, the shift in someone's tone, the detail that doesn't belong. This isn't paranoia. This is pattern recognition. This is your nervous system functioning at a higher resolution. You're the person who spots danger before it becomes catastrophic, who solves problems others don't even see yet, who catches the details that save projects, relationships, lives. Yes, it means you're overwhelmed by noise and chaos, but it also means you excel in environments that require precision, thoughtfulness, care. You're not overly sensitive, you're exquisitely attuned. You don't do shallow. Small talk feels excruciating because your brain isn't built for surface level interaction. You crave depth, meaning, connection. You process information slowly because you process it thoroughly. You consider every angle. You see connections others don't. This is why therapy works so well for you. Why self-help books feel like they were written specifically for you. Why one conversation can change your entire perspective. You have a rich inner world, a capacity for reflection and growth that most people will never develop. Yes, it means you overthink, but it also means you understand yourself and others at a level most people never reach. Your depth isn't a bug, it's your operating system. You know things before you know how you know them. You walk into a room and instantly sense the energy. You meet someone and immediately feel whether they're safe. You hear someone's story and instinctively know what they're not saying. This is intuition, and yours is off the charts. You're not paranoid. You're not making things up. Your nervous system is reading 1,000 microsignals that your conscious mind hasn't processed yet. You're the person who says something feels off, and 3 months later you're proven right. You're the person who trusts your gut, even when logic says otherwise, and your gut is rarely wrong. This is a gift, a powerful, ancient, evolutionary gift. Yes, it means you can't always explain why you feel what you feel, but it also means you navigate complexity with a wisdom that others have to learn the hard way. Your intuition has kept you alive. Trust it. Here's the truth. The moment I started to see my own sensitivity as a gift, not a flaw, my world changed. I stopped apologizing for needing downtime. I stopped feeling guilty for crying. I stopped pretending to be tougher than I am. And something extraordinary happened. I started attracting people who valued my sensitivity instead of punishing it. I started setting boundaries without shame. I started trusting my intuition without second guessing. I started using my emotional depth as a strength instead of hiding it as a weakness. The world didn't change, I did, and you can too. Because your sensitivity isn't something to overcome. It's something to integrate. It's not something to fix. It's something to honor. You've spent your whole life trying to be less sensitive, less emotional, less intense. What if you stopped? What if you leaned into your sensitivity instead of away from it? What if you built a life that actually fits who you are, instead of trying to fit into a life designed for someone else? What if you stopped seeing yourself as broken and started seeing yourself as rare? Because you are. You're one of the 15 to 20%. You're the dreamer, the feeler, the healer, and the world doesn't need you to change. The world needs you to show up. So where do you go from here? How do you actually heal the wound? How do you transform your sensitivity from a burden into a superpower? Let me give you a roadmap, 3 steps. Practical, actionable, and rooted in real recovery. First, you have to separate your HSP trait from your trauma responses. Not all of your sensitivity is genetic. Some of it is hypervigilance, some of it is survival. Here's the good news: the more trauma work you do, the quieter the noise gets. When I started therapy, my sensitivity felt like a 10. Everything overwhelmed me. Every emotion felt like a tidal wave. But as I processed my childhood wounds, as I did the inner child work, set boundaries, and learned to self-regulate, the volume came down. It's still there. I'm still an HSP, but it's a manageable 2 instead of a deafening 10. So keep going, keep doing the work, therapy, journaling, somatic healing, whatever path works for you, because the more you heal your trauma, the more you can access the gift of your sensitivity without drowning in it. Second, you need to rewrite the story you were told about yourself. Take out a journal, write down the narrative your family gave you. You're too sensitive. You're too dramatic. You take everything too personally. You need to toughen up. Now write the truth. My sensitivity is a strength. My emotional depth is a gift. My reactions to abuse were appropriate. I don't need to toughen up. I need to be honored. This isn't just positive thinking. This is identity reconstruction. You spent decades internalizing a lie. Now it's time to replace it with truth. Your sensitivity isn't a flaw. Your family just didn't know how to handle it. And that's not your burden to carry anymore. Third, learn to work with your sensitivity, not against it. That means setting boundaries. You don't have to attend every event. You don't have to fix everyone's problems. You're allowed to say no. Creating space. Build a life that includes downtime, quiet, solitude. Your nervous system needs recovery time, and that's not negotiable. Letting go of codependency. You're not responsible for other people's emotions. Let them feel their feelings. Let them solve their problems. Honoring your limits. If loud environments drain you, limit your time there. If violent media haunts you, stop consuming it. Stop forcing yourself to do things that harm your nervous system. You don't need to become less sensitive. You need to become unapologetic about who you are. Here's what nobody tells highly sensitive people. The world needs you, not a tougher version of you, not a quieter, smaller, less emotional version of you. The world needs you exactly as you are, because who else is going to love children the way they need to be loved? Who else is going to notice when someone is drowning and everyone else is too distracted to see? Who else is going to create the art, write the words, sing the songs that make people feel less alone? Who else is going to be the healer, the empath, the one who holds space for pain without trying to fix it? The world needs people who can still feel, who haven't numbed themselves into oblivion, who haven't built walls so high that nothing gets in or out. Society needs adventurers and pastors, competitors and peacemakers, warriors and poets. There's an evolutionary reason why 15 to 20% of the population is born this way. Our ancestors needed explorers who would hunt and conquer, but they also needed the sensitive ones, the ones who slept lightly and heard danger coming, the ones who planned for winter, the ones who created beauty and meaning. You are not a mistake, you are not an accident, you are a necessary part of the ecosystem, and the fact that modern society doesn't honor your gift doesn't mean your gift isn't valuable. It just means society's broken, not you. So stop trying to fit into a world that wasn't built for you. Start building a world that is. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are not too emotional. You are exactly enough. Your sensitivity is not a wound to heal. It's a gift to unwrap. And the moment you stop fighting it, the moment you stop apologizing for it, the moment you start honoring it, that's when everything changes. That's when you stop surviving and start living. You walked into this video carrying shame. Shame about your tears, shame about your overwhelm, shame about needing more time, more space, more gentleness than everyone else. I hope you leave carrying something different. Hope. Because here's what I know for certain. Your sensitivity is not your weakness. It never was. It's been your compass, your warning system, your deepest source of connection. Yes, it made your childhood harder. Yes, it made you a target. Yes, it made you feel like you were born on the wrong planet. But it also made you you. It made you the person who notices, who cares, who feels. It made you the person who can hold a crying friend without needing them to stop, who can see beauty in the mundane, who can love with a fierceness that most people will never access. Your sensitivity is your signature, and it's time to sign your name in bold. So here's what I want you to do tonight. Write a letter to your sensitivity. Thank it for keeping you alive, for helping you survive, for protecting you when no one else would. And then tell it this: I'm done treating you like a burden. I'm done apologizing for you. From now on, I'm going to honor you, protect you, let you guide me, because your sensitivity deserves your respect. It's been waiting your whole life for you to see it as the gift it is. Your sensitivity is your superpower, not because it makes life easy, it doesn't, but because it makes life meaningful. It makes you capable of depth, connection, and love at a level most people will never experience. So stop hiding it, stop shrinking it, stop apologizing for it. The world doesn't need more people who are numb. The world needs people who can still feel, and that's you. So take up space, feel your feelings, trust your intuition, and know this: you were never broken, you were always whole.